Welcome back to Ghost Teller Media Channel. And if you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. Please enjoy today's chilling stories. So, let's begin. True scary stories that happened in Japan. Sakura-san's story. I'm Sakura, and here's a chilling tale that unfolded in my life not so long ago. I've decided to share this dreadful experience with you, so let me take you through that nightmarish Saturday. It was a Saturday evening and just returned to my small apartment in Kyoto after a heartwarming visit to my parents in the serene village of Miyama. The tranquility of my hometown still hung in the air as I stepped into my cozy home. With the winter chill setting in, I yearned for some relaxation after a long train journey and quality family time. I filled the tub with warm water, added my favorite lavender-scented bath salts and bubbles, and dimmed the lights. As I settled into the tub, I closed my eyes and allowed the steam to envelop me, momentarily escaping the stresses of the week. The warmth and comfort of the bath nearly lulled me into a tranquil sleep. However, my serenity was brutally shattered by the piercing sound of glass shattering from somewhere within my apartment. I bolted upright, my heart pounding, adrenaline surging through my veins. The eerie silence that followed the crash sent a shiver down my spine. I hastily wrapped a towel around myself, water dripping onto the tiled floor as I tiptoed to my bathroom door, my senses on high alert. Slowly, I pushed it open, my ears straining to pick up any sound. However, the only thing I heard was the steady drip of water from my wet body. The noise had come from my living room. As I cautiously pushed open the door, the flickering shadows revealed a moonlit scene of chaos. Glass shards were scattered across the floor, and there, by the open window, was a figure, cloaked in darkness. My heart sank as I gasped in disbelief. It was Hiroshi, the man I had dated over a year ago, the one who had ghosted me after just 3 dates, leaving me heartbroken and bewildered. The man I had desperately tried to forget. He wore a sinister smile, his eyes locking onto mine with a chilling intensity. I was rendered speechless. Fear had clamped down on my voice. Questions ran through my mind. How did he find me? What did he want? He then whispered in a voice dripping with menace. You thought you could just forget about me, didn't you? But I haven't forgotten about you, Sakura. Not at all. The realization that he had been stalking me sent shivers down my spine. I reached for my phone to call the police, but he lunged forward, knocking it from my trembling hand. Instinct kicked in, and I ran for the front door. I could hear him giving chase, his heavy footsteps echoing behind me. As I flung the door open and raced into the hallway, I saw my neighbor's light flickered on, and I just started screaming for help. Moments later, the police arrived just in time to apprehend him. Now, as for the police investigation, it revealed some deeply unsettling details about Hiroshi, who had invaded my home. They discovered that he had been planning this intrusion meticulously for months. He had been stalking me, documenting my daily life, and had gathered a collection of evidence that painted a disturbing picture of his obsession with me, like photographs, notes, and even a diary filled with his twisted thoughts. As a result of these shocking findings, he was taken into custody. But here's the kicker. He was declared mentally unstable. The court ordered him to be committed to a psychiatric facility where he would receive treatment and evaluation. Despite these developments, the fear and uncertainty still linger within me. Was he genuinely mentally ill, or was there something more sinister at play? I may never know. Never truly know the answers to these questions, and the uncertainty of that night will forever be a part of my life. It's my hope that this story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us all to stay cautious and be aware of the shadows that may lurk in the corners of our lives. Yumiko-san's story. Yumiko was a 20-year-old university student in Tokyo, and even though her real-life nightmare happened over 5 years ago, she told me she will never, ever get in an elevator again. Here's her story. Yumiko found herself in a late-night dilemma. Immersed in her studies within the confines of the Tokyo Library, she labored to complete a pressing project. By the time she emerged, it was already dark, and a sense of unease washed over her. The journey back to her apartment loomed, a journey she dreaded as a young woman in the darkened city. Settled on the 14th floor of an apartment complex, Yumiko's building adhered to the local custom of omitting the 13th floor. Awaiting the elevator's arrival, she cast cautious glances over her shoulder, her wariness of the late night evident. The elevator appeared and she stepped within, her fingers selecting the button for her floor. Just as the doors prepared to close, a breathless, handsome young man made a last-minute dash. With a skilled hand, he stopped the elevator doors from closing. Inquisitively, he noted the illuminated button for the 14th floor. "You live on the 14th floor?" he asked. Yumiko acknowledged with a nod. Observing her assent, he smiled, his fingers signaling the 12th floor. "Well, I reside on the 12th, he disclosed. The elevator embarked on its ascension, its occupants enveloped in a contemplated hush. Yumiko, despite herself, secretly appraised the young man beside her. His features bore striking handsomeness, igniting her wonderment about his intentions. A daring notion crossed her mind. Could he possibly share an interest in her? The elevator interrupted her daydream, halting at the 12th floor. The young man disembarked with a casual farewell. "Until we meet again," he mused. Yumiko reciprocated his sentiment. "Indeed, until then." However, just as the doors began to close in on each other, a sudden change of events unfolded. Swirling around to face the elevator, the young man pulled out a gleaming blade from the inner pocket of his coat. His voice, tinged with menace, shattered the air. "Upstairs." With menacing laughter, he sprinted towards the staircase, leaving Yumiko in a torrent of dread. Panic welled within her as the elevator, unaffected by her frantic strikes, began its rise. Desperation fueled her efforts, her fists pummeling the buttons in a futile plea for intervention. As the 14th floor emerged and the doors peeled open, the man with the blade stood poised, an eerie sentinel awaiting her arrival. Yumiko's heart raced like a stallion, her mind a whirlwind of terror and confusion. The man with the knife stood before her, an embodiment of malevolence, his eyes gleaming with the twisted anticipation that made her blood run cold. The elevator doors remained ajar, the gap between them a boundary between safety and the abyss. "You thought you could escape, didn't you?" he hissed, his voice dripping with the chilling derangement that sent shivers down Yumiko's spine. She was trapped. A mere few feet from him, and her mind raced for an escape plan. Gathering every ounce of courage, Yumiko stammered, "What do you want?" His grin widened, revealing teeth that seemed far too sharp. "What do I want? Oh, my dear, I want to play a game." The word "game" hung in the air like a death sentence, and Yumiko's mind raced, her instincts urging her to flee, but there was nowhere to run, no sanctuary to seek within this narrow metal chamber. Her thoughts flickered to her phone, her lifeline to the outside world. He watched her with sinister amusement, as if savoring her desperation. "Ah, calling for help. How adorable," he said. As the line connected, hope flickered in Yumiko's heart, but it was swiftly extinguished when she heard nothing but static. Panic surged anew within her. She couldn't comprehend how a lifeline as dependable as her phone had failed her in this critical moment. The man took a step closer, his blade catching the glint of the harsh overhead lights. Yumiko's mind raced, weaving through a labyrinth of possibilities. Could she fight? Could she reason? Could she find some hidden advantage in this dire situation? Before she could decide, a metallic screech tore through the air and the elevator jolted. Its ascent arrested. Yumiko's body was thrown off balance, crashing against the back wall. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around the man's contorted features. "What's happening?" Yumiko cried out, her voice a desperate plea. The man's laughter echoed within the confined space. "Welcome to my world, Yumiko. This is where your little game unfolds." The realization hit her like a sledgehammer. He had taken control of the elevator. He was orchestrating this nightmare, manipulating the very walls that held her captive. The confined space, once a mundane cocoon of metal, had become a malevolent entity of its own. Yumiko's mind raced, adrenaline surging as her survival instincts kicked into overdrive. She scanned her surroundings for anything, any object that could be used as a weapon, any crevice that could offer a means of escape, but the walls seemed to close in and the air grew dense with a suffocating fear. The man took a deliberate step forward, his eyes locked onto hers, relishing her helplessness. "Shall we continue our journey, Yumiko?" The elevator shuddered again, plunging into darkness. The emergency lights flickered to life, casting an eerie, pale glow that rendered everything in shades of unsettling gray. The atmosphere was electric with the promise of impending doom. In the suffocating silence, a chilling realization dawned upon Yumiko. This was no longer an elevator. It was a chamber of horrors, a place where her deepest fears were woven into reality, and the man with the knife was the puppeteer, orchestrating her descent into a darkness from which there might be no escape. Time seemed to stretch into an eternity within the confines of the elevator, each heartbeat echoing like a drumbeat of impending doom. Yumiko's breaths were shallow and ragged, her body trembling as the man's sadistic game intensified. The emergency lights cast eerie shadows across his features, distorting his malevolent grin into something truly nightmarish. "Yumiko," he purred, his voice dripping with sadistic glee. "Do you know the true nature of fear? It's not just the monster lurking in the darkness. It's the realization that the darkness is within you." His words seeped into her mind like venom, instilling a new layer of dread that mingled with the pain and confusion. Every inch of her body ached from the impact of the elevator's abrupt jolts, but the physical pain paled in comparison to the psychological torment. Yumiko's eyes darted around the confined space, seeking an escape that seemed ever more elusive. With each shift and shudder of the elevator, her hope dwindled, replaced by a paralyzing realization that the man was in control of her fate. He moved closer, his knife gleaming in the dim light like a harbinger of suffering. The first cut was a shock, a searing line of fire across her forearm as the blade bit into her flesh. Yumiko's scream tore through the air, the sound reverberating off the metal walls like a haunting cry. The man's laughter followed, a symphony of madness that twisted her fear into a grotesque dance of agony. "Let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes, shall we?" he mused, his voice a sickening lullaby as he advanced. Yumiko's attempts to fight back were feeble, her strength drained by a potent cocktail of terror and pain. She flinched as the blade cut again and again and again, tracing a path of torment across her shoulder, back, and arms. Her clothes were stained with her own blood, a macabre tapestry that bore witness to her suffering. But within the fog of despair, a spark of defiance ignited. Yumiko's fingers closed around a fragment of broken glass on the elevator floor, her grip tight as she clung to this fragile lifeline. When the man lunged once more, she struck with all the desperation of a cornered animal, the glass finding its mark in his shoulder. His roar of pain was a symphony of vindication, a moment of respite in the nightmare. Yumiko seized the opportunity, summoning a surge of strength she hadn't known she possessed. She lunged at the control panel, her fingers fumbling to summon help from the outside world. As the elevator shuddered to a halt, a distant voice crackled through the speaker, a lifeline to sanity. The man's threats devolved into a cacophony of rage, his grasp on control slipping like grains of sand through his fingers. Yumiko emerged from the elevator battered and broken, her body a canvas of wounds and bruises. The man was subdued, his reign of terror ending in a blaze of police lights and shouts. The ordeal had stripped Yumiko down to her core, leaving her fragile and scarred, but alive. The elevator, once a symbol of mundane convenience, had become a vessel of torment to Yumiko. Lily-san's story. This story revolves around a 19-year-old named Lily, and this is her chilling tale. Lily resided in an ancient home in Tachikawa, Japan, which lies outside the western borders of Tokyo. The home's timbers creaked and settled like an age-old creature, resonating with enigmatic secrets that murmured in the obscurity. She shared her room with her younger sister, Hana. One particular night, the atmosphere was cold and eerie, as if the night itself held its breath, enveloping them in its grasp. The raging thunderstorm intensified the night's ominous quality. Rain relentlessly battered the windows and lightning rented the sky, casting brief, eerie illuminations into their room. As each jarring thunderclap resounded, unsettling intuitions insinuated that the storm could foretell something profoundly ominous. Initially, they laughed it off, attributing it to the overactive minds. However, the inexplicable began to unfold. Soft, persistent knocks echoed on their bedroom door, their rhythm synchronized with the rain's cadence. The storm seemed to serve as a conduit for the eerie forces enveloping them. Lily and Hana exchanged anxious glances, their apprehensions mirrored in one another's eyes. When they finally gathered the courage to open the door, an empty hallway greeted them. The sound was eerie, a ghostly presence toying with their senses. Yet, that was merely the beginning. Subsequently, faint tapping sounds resonated against their bedroom's window pane. The noise appeared to emanate from the outside, similar to skeletal fingers seeking entry. However, every time they summoned the courage to investigate, the windows yielded nothing but an abyss of darkness, obscuring the source. Then arrived the lightning, brilliant and blinding. With each flash, the room was illuminated, and Lily, seen an elusive shadowy figure that had haunted her dreams. She dismissed it as a mere trick of her eyes and attributed it to her already heightened nerves. Eventually, amidst the tumultuous storm, both Lily and Hana managed to succumb to sleep. Several nights later, Lily was abruptly woken by a deafening thunderclap that echoed through the house. Another intense thunderstorm raged outside. Startled awake, Lily felt ensnared within her own body. Sleep paralysis had taken hold, leaving her only able to move her eyes as she struggled to understand her surroundings. The room was bathed in ethereal blue glow, her heart thudding like a trapped bird's wings. Panic surged as she realized she wasn't alone. Hana stood near the bedroom door, bathed in a transcendent light. A sense of relief washed over Lily, which was swiftly replaced by a blinding flash of lightning that illuminated the room. The silhouette of the shadow seemed to elongate unnaturally, its edges merging into something that unmistakably wasn't her sister. Lily's pulse raced. Her attempt to call out to Hana was stifled, her voice trapped alongside her paralyzed body. With each subsequent lightning strike, the figure's form warped and distorted. It was as though the electric charge in the atmosphere bestowed upon it an inexplicable power. enabling it to transcend its malevolent nature. As lightning continued to streak across the sky, the shadow figure grew increasingly tangible, more substantial, yet paradoxically more nightmarish. It twisted and writhed, a creature born from the amalgamation of darkness and storm. As thunder boomed, Lily believed she heard whispers, voices neither human nor natural, a symphony of terror that vibrated through her very bones. The shadow figure glided nearer, its movements deliberate yet unhurried, its malevolence piercing Lily like an icy blade. Desperation compelled her to scan the room for escape, though her immobilized body rendered her efforts pointless. The figure halted at the foot of her bed, its gaze frigid and sinister. Lily strained against the confines of her paralysis, yet her yearning to move, to flee, impossible. The figure continued its gliding path, a slow dance of curiosity. Desperation drove her to scream, to summon Hana for help, yet only silence echoed back. The very air seemed to thicken, smothering her in fear. As the figure inched closer, her breath hitched, and her pulse roared in her ears. Its shape twisted and contorted as it approached the bedroom door. The thunder outside resounded, and the figure quivered violently, tremors that defied natural laws coursing through its form. A guttural, spine-chilling screech erupted, tearing at the fabric of Lily's sanity. The noise engulfed her senses, and darkness encroached as she crumpled to the floor. When consciousness returned, sunlight streamed through the windows, and Hana stood over her, eyes wide with concern. "You fainted," she said, her voice trembling. But what had Lily truly endured? Was it a nightmare or an encounter with the supernatural? The boundary between reality and the enigmatic blurred, leaving her grappling with her own perceptions. Over time, the memory of that night lingered, an enigma embedded in her thoughts. As she lay in bed, the sensation persisted. Those shadows still whispered, secrets eluding comprehension. Memories were awakened by thunderstorms, sending a shiver down her spine, as a reminder of an enduring darkness lurking just beyond understanding. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel to hear more chilling stories every week.